That's going to be my assumption on this one. So now we're going to try sharing the video screen, see if that works. But here, instead of saying hello, it'd be nice if you said, I can see your computer. Then we can move forward. All right, so that's that. I don't see any other button I should be pushing. Good, good, good. Yes, Dan hears me. Good, thank you, Dan. Now when you can see my screen, we're all good to go. There's like 20-something people besides Dan, but Dan's the only one that actually responds. Dan can see the screen, so Dan and I are going to have a webinar. Okay, let's go, guys. Dan, any topic you want to go on is fine by me because we got nothing else to do. All right, what is going on? All right. After all this, you think I'd be organized, but I'm not. I know I was going to talk about the thing everybody asks me everywhere I go. Everybody says, Phil, is there going to be a recession? And, my answer is basically yes, because if you look at the rest of the world, they are in big trouble. And they're less likely to be able to get out of it than we are. The Ukraine thing is not ending. In fact, just today, Putin said some bullshit about keeping it going as long as he can, or whatever he said. Let me see if the New York Times will agree with me here. And I know some people think it's a liberal paper, but I think it's the only paper you can trust. So it's like I don't really believe it until I read it in the New York Times. Beijing eases stringent controls. They're all about this China stuff. They're very excited. Warnock, of course, blah, blah, blah. Germany arrests people plotting to overthrow the government. They got their own groups, but apparently they were all QAnon fans. So they're all, this is a nice global thing. They're trying to overthrow all the governments now. Trump got convicted of tax fraud. Not that it's going to matter, but, oh, there it is. Putin. Fighting the Ukraine may be a long process. That's not what you want to hear out of Putin. So I love it. It's like, we're like living in Harry Potter now, right? Because remember when was the first Harry Potter movie? Okay, let's see. First Harry Eek. (2001). Okay, so that was 2001, and the special effect was papers that moved. And it's not quite there where you hold it in your hand yet, although technically, if you have an iPad, it is. But that was like magic. It wasn't even considered science because it was just so ridiculous that you could have such a thing that we thought it was considered magic at the time. And we had the internet, but this is just crazy now. Now your newspapers move, and you've got videos, and when you're browsing on things, you have animated GIFs and all kinds of stuff. This one's moving. It's weird. It's only 20-something years later. It's basically 20 years later, and it's now normal. You don't think twice about seeing like moving pictures in the middle of your newspaper articles. And I'm telling you, in 20 years from now, you'll see it in a handheld paper or a handheld whatever that you end up holding. Probably we're going to have these, you've seen these folding plastic screens, right? That are like very thin, and basically you're just holding the glass from your phone, except it's bendable. So effectively, that's what's going to be a phone in the future. And that's, basically you have this little roll-up piece of glass or plastic that you put in your pocket. You unroll it, you look at whatever, and that's going to be a thing. Anyway, it just kind of strikes me that just perfectly normal thing. Look in the Wall Street Journal and or in the Times, and look, it's moving. So they're actually showing you all their little footage. Anyhow, so Putin is saying, there's going to be a long, drawn-out war. He's not quitting. And that's not what you want to hear if you're Europe, because, you know, you've got the oil supply chain issue, you've got the natural gas issue in the war, you've got the grain shortages from Ukraine. It's like the breadbasket of Europe, basically. These are not good things, and these are inflationary things, and these are economically slowing things. So you got that. China will hopefully come out of COVID okay, but what's the chances of that? You've got, in the US, officially in the US, 100 million, 1/3 of us have had COVID already. That's the official count. You guys know, I am sure, plenty of people who've had COVID, probably people in your own family who've had COVID and took the home test or whatever, never reported it, never, you know, you didn't jump on the phone and call the WHO and say, I got COVID, tell me. You don't, a lot of people didn't officially even go to a doctor. If you had mild COVID, what do? You get over it. You take a test, you get over it, you test yourself again, you get over it. That's how it's designed to work in this country. But that means we're drastically underreporting how many people have had COVID. So we have effectively moved towards herd immunity. We're probably 2/3 of the population has had COVID. And what that does, herd, come on, Phil. All right, what's right there? You know what it is? Because like I don't look when I type, and if I put my hand down in the wrong place, I'm just typing all the wrong, I'm typing the keys that are one over. Herd immunity. How is this best explained? What I'm going to tell you. This good? This seems pretty good. All right, that seems like a good map, but it's because it's Wikipedia. Wikipedia is so great. They always have the best stuff. All right. No one is immunized. Contagion spreads through the population. Okay, so no one is immune. And this person gets COVID, and this person gets COVID, and they infect everybody around them. And then those people affect everybody around them because everybody just catches a virus because no one has immunity. There you go. Very simple concept, right? Now, some people get immunized. They say immunized, but I'm talking about immunity. Even if you had having COVID also makes you immune. So if some people are immunized, those are the yellow people, right? Immunized and healthy, then the contagious people, the same two contagious people, are going to affect less people because these guys already had COVID. And because they already had COVID or they're immune, they're not going to catch it again. They become a buffer to people who, even though they didn't have an immunity, see, not immunized but still healthy, even though they have had no immunity, they're buffered by people who didn't get sick. And then once you get to where we are, most of the population, and they say again, gets immunized. Yes, between being vaccinated. So you think 2/3 of the people have had COVID. So whether they've been vaccinated or not, they're immune or less, well, not less immune, less susceptible. I don't think the word would be immune, but if you're immune, you imagine. But so 2/3 of our population has had COVID already. That means we have antibodies of some sort. Of the 1/3 that's hasn't had COVID, 2/3 of them have been vaccinated. And especially the older people, and the oldest part of the population has been heavily vaccinated. 90% of them have been vaccinated. But let's just say, for example, so of the remaining 1/3, only 2/3 of them haven't been vaccinated. So now you're down to, if you go from 300 million to 100 million who didn't have COVID, but of the 100 million, 66 million were vaccinated. Now we only have 33 million people out of 300. Now we only have 1 in 10 of our population who are unvaccinated and did not have COVID. So they're susceptible. So this is where we are. here's this 90% thing, right? Most of the population is immunized, whether vaccinated or actually having the disease. Therefore, when these two people have COVID, there's really no one to infect. Okay, remember, these are guys who are not immunized but still healthy, and look what happens to them. So this one, no change. That one, no change. That one gets sick. That one, no change. So only one person in this whole group gets sick versus basically everybody getting sick from being not immunized. China is really here. They had a zero COVID policy. Nobody got COVID. 0% of their population got COVID. Nothing like what we had. They have incredibly, I mean, not 0, but like 1%, 2% of their population got COVID. They would freak out if 100 people got COVID, they would shut down a city. So nobody built up a natural immunity. Then you say, okay, well, nobody built up a natural immunity. How many people got vaccinated? 60% of their population got vaccinated, but they only got vaccinated with old style vaccines, and they're nowhere near the kind of protection. So call them 50% effective. So where they're really at is that you would have to say maybe 1/3 of their people have had any exposure, immunization exposure at all. So they're still highly susceptible, much more than what this indicates. They're still really close to this susceptibility. Therefore, when those people go out and start doing normal things, because they're not right now, they've not been doing normal things at all. They've empty streets and empty places, and no, they don't go out, curfews and all kinds of stuff. When they start going out normally, this is going to happen. It's basically inevitable. And you're talking about China scale massive outbreaks. And this is why it's very hard for the government to say, oh, we're going to reverse that policy and start doing this instead. That's hard to do because you're dooming these people. You are going to cause this much disease. And they're going to run back and shut down and do things. But the bottom line is this will not go well. And that's why the market did not respond that well to China's change in policy, because their change in policy isn't based on stopping people from getting COVID, basically. To some extent, they're bowing to pressure. But their policy was always going to lead to this. That's why the policy they had is always going to lead to this. If they were smarter, they would have bought all the vaccine that Pfizer and Moderna could make, and because it's more effective, and send it over there. But that's by doing that, they're admitting that their stuff isn't as good, and they don't want to do that. So, and also it's very expensive. I mean, let's say it's $100 a dose. It's not just $100 dose. Oh, there's another reason China doesn't have the mRNA vaccines is because they have to be kept at extremely cold temperatures, and there's no cold chain storage in China. There's no mechanism. We have a mechanism in this country for drugs that because of cancers and chemos and things like that. We have a mechanism in this country for transferring drugs at extremely cold temperature, including special UPS units and special FedEx units and special containers that most clinics have, all hospitals have, even places like CVS and Walgreens have. Okay, so we were able to massively distribute these drugs to the kind of people who have it already, and that's nationwide. China doesn't have anything like that. So it's not really feasible for them to get a billion, to get 1 billion doses of Moderna's vaccine and distribute it to 1 billion people. It just doesn't work that way. They can't distribute it. How? They'd have to first build that entire infrastructure to make the distributions work. So they keep using the less effective vaccines. That's a big problem though, because you think you're immunized, but you still get it. And by the way, people who I see getting COVID now are getting it, and they've been immunized, and they just go, oh, I had a mild case of COVID, no big deal. That's a lot of the unreported COVID stuff. They never had COVID before. They've been getting their vaccines. They have a mild case, and they just go on with their lives. But that's people like me who have I've had 4 shots. I may or may not have had COVID last year in Las Vegas, but if I did, it was a pretty mild case. I was sick as a dog for a few days, but it was a pretty mild case. Did I report it? No, I felt better after a few days, and I went on with my life. My brother Steve had COVID at the wedding he just went to. He went to the wedding, he wore a mask. He stayed away from everybody, but he went to the wedding, wore a mask. And he got over his in a few days. In fact, he had gotten over it like 3 days before, or he tested over it 3 days before, but out of caution, he was being careful. But again, he's had his shots, and he got a mild case of COVID. Didn't really slow him down much for even the 3 days he had it. He was just still just walking around and doing stuff, and he was fine, and nobody at the wedding caught COVID, so it all worked out. China's not like that at all, though. They're like we were a year or so ago when not that many people had COVID yet, and it was spreading like crazy. And they're walking right into that, and that's a disaster. We went through it already. So, okay, so will there be a recession? Well, either Europe or China has to save us, right? And Europe ain't going to save us, and China's not going to save us, and Japan is drowning in debt. Oh, and China also has that massive, I said China was going to go down over the property issues. That's still an overhang for them too, with all these property collapse in China. So that's bad. So China's not going to save us. Japan's not going to save us. The other, India, is in no shape to help anybody. And it's just not going to happen. There's going to be a recession. There's no avoiding a recession. The question is, will we have a mild recession? And I think in the US and Canada, yeah, we'll have a mild recession. One reason is because we still have infinite amounts of money to spend because we don't give a crap about debt. Is that good or bad in the long run? It's not really important. What's important is we shouldn't have a major recession because we don't give a crap about debt. So we can basically borrow and spend our way out of anything. Not only that, though, but corporate profits are high. So, you're not going to see, they're not going to suddenly dive down. And again, people are fixated on what happened. Like, you think of a recession, you think back to 2008. It's nothing like 2008 because in 2008, the rally was built on oil was over $100. And everybody thought oil was going to $120, $200, whatever. It did go to $140, I think, at some point. But there were people, and I mean like Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, who were predicting $200 oil. I was one of the only people saying this is ridiculous. Why? Math. $200 for oil means if you're filling up a $20, it's $5. It's at least $5. It's not $5 a gallon. It's more like $6 or $7 a gallon. So if it's like let's say $6 a gallon, and you buy 20 gallons worth of gas, it's $120. Who's got $120 every week to fill up a gas tank? That's ludicrous. You just you're absolutely bankrupting everybody, especially back then because the cars got a lot less mileage back then. We were like barely at 20 miles a gallon back then. Now our fleet is closer to 30 miles per gallon, so we're using less gas. Therefore, we are better equipped to afford $5 gasoline than we were back then. But still, it's damaging. It still hurts to pull out $100 to fill up a 20-gallon tank, right? That's the brakes that get put on things. It doesn't matter how much you think people need oil. If they don't have the money, they're not going to get the oil. All right, this is why I said back in 2008, I said the next thing they're going after is water, and it's already happening. You can already see it happening, but they're going after your water because they've got to find something that you cannot possibly live without. And when I say they, I mean they who are behind everything, which is really just the richest families in the world. And in fact, they just did a roundup of who they are. Richest families in the world. Where was it? Up there, Bloomberg. See, they just did this. I saw it today, but here's Bloomberg from a couple of weeks ago anyway. So who are the richest people in the world who control everything? Blah, de blah, de blah. We got the Waltons. These are not the richest families in the world, by the way. This is bullshit. There's the Waltons. They're the Saudis laugh at these people. I'm not sure where they're coming up with this. Not these people. The world's richest families are so wrong. There's the Rothschilds. There's the Mahmouds in Saudi Arabia. They're not even on this list. Mars, Conch. Oh, here's Al Saud. It's way. I mean, that's nonsense. Much richer people. Hermes, Abami. Anyway, families. These are the people, though, still who are at the table for making decisions. And these are the people who control the oil, and now they're going to control the water, and they're going to control whatever they can to whatever is a necessity for you. If they control it, they can charge whatever they want. That's great. So water is the next big thing to go after, but it's only now coalescing as a good investment opportunity. We can look at that down the road too. All right. So anyway, where was I? Herd immunity and everything else. Okay. So who's going to save us from a recession? Nobody else. We're going to be the brake on the world as far as what we can do. And our companies are doing relatively okay. And we still have the massive amount of open jobs and so on and so forth. We've got a lot of room to grow, basically, as an economy. And our recession is artificial because the Fed has been pumping rates up much higher than the actual demand for money. In other words, in a normal economy, the rates would go up because a lot of people would be wanting dollars to build things, and that's what puts the brakes on expansion, right? There's too much demand for dollars, therefore there's not enough dollars available for various projects, and then people will start bidding for money, and they'll say, I'll pay you 6% to give me money, I'll pay you 7% to give me money. That's demand-driven rate increases. This is not that. This is the Fed artificially setting rates at higher and higher prices, even though nobody asked for the money. Still plenty of liquidity around. So now we have a lot of liquidity with nowhere to go. There's nowhere to invest money. This is the problem, because housing demand just went to the dip. Housing fell completely off a cliff, and that's usually the major driver of demand for money is turning over housing. If people aren't buying houses, then where's all this demand for money coming from? So they're not buying houses. They're not building, major commercial ventures are not being built because, again, there's no demand. There's a surplus of commercial real estate. Goods and services are too expensive. People aren't running around borrowing money and buying, like lots of durable goods and so on and so forth because the rates are high. And why are the rates high? Because they're artificially high. They're not demand high. They're not high because people want it at that price. They're high because the Fed set an artificial price, and that artificial price has clearly done what the Fed wanted to do, slow down the economy tremendously. But it's a stupid way to control an economy, and that's what they're doing though. Anyway, all right, so let's answer a couple of questions. Brendan says, we are going into recession is already priced into certain stocks, or some are already down a lot. Yes, and there's too much fear in some things and not enough fear in other things, and we have to be very careful about the stuff we pick. We were talking about this in chat. We've been talking about it for weeks. Ever since August, when we first started becoming cautious about the economy and expecting a turn down, what we've been zoning in on and paring down our portfolio for is we don't want a lot of exposure to foreign countries, right? We don't want that because we're worried about a global recession that's harsher in the rest of the world than here. So I want companies that do a good chunk of their business in America. We don't want countries that are going to be suffering from an exchange rate because, again, global recession, stronger dollar here, weaker currencies over there. Got to take that into account. We certainly don't want companies that have a lot of debt, right? That's That's out because the Fed keeps raising rates and debt will become more expensive, even the debt they already have, because most companies are going to borrow debt at a 3-year revolving debt or something like that, 5-year revolving debt, maybe. Not builders, but regular companies. They'll borrow 3 to 5 year debt. You know how it is if most of you guys have had businesses. You know how you take a loan out. It's not a long-term thing. You're not taking a mortgage on a house. You're taking loans out, and that means that if you were borrowing at 2 and 3% over the last few years, and now rates are 6%. All right, so then you're going to be doubling your loan, whatever your outstanding balance of debt is. You're going to be doubling your payments. That could be very, very painful for some people. And especially, you got to look at the companies, look at their cash flow, and say, how badly is this going to damage the cash flow? And what we've been doing is adding 5% more interest. So in other words, we take their debt and we multiply that by 5%, and we take that off their net profit and say, is that survivable? So it's a hopefully, and I'm saying hopefully worst case scenario, because debt has been much higher. There is nothing unique about debt going to 6% interest cost. So interest rate history. So since 1955. So we're in an unusually low interest time. Here's 4% Fed funds rate, right, which we're just getting back to now. Here's 6%. And most of the time, since the 70s, we're over 6%. And then what happened in 2000? There was 9/11. They dropped rates considerably to avoid a recession. That caused a spike in housing, and they had to raise rates to try to stop the mania of people buying houses. But why is that? Because at this rate, which hadn't been seen since the 1960s, it made total sense to buy a house. And the price of the house wasn't that important because your interest rate was so low that the price wasn't that important. So people were paying more and more and more and more money for houses. And that's what led to the spike in housing, which also lent to a lot of derivative trading around houses and sub loans and sub-tier mortgages and so on and so forth. Subprime mortgages, they call them, subprime mortgages. And then there was an entire industry of insuring the subprime mortgages and betting on this, and then betting on the failure. There's an industry betting on the failure of the subprime mortgages and so on and so forth. So now suddenly trillions and trillions of dollars are being bet, but all on the same goddamn thing, that housing's going to go up or down. And when housing collapsed, no matter how low they made the rates, the housing market collapsed. And all this fake money is what caused the collapse. All this bullshit derivative proposition trading on a housing bubble collapsed, and it turned out that all the projections the banks had for profits, and even the profits they had booked, because the banks booked profits based on the fact that they had a portfolio of real estate that was worth X, and they called those profits, and then they would trade derivatives against those profits and put money in, and it was all going great until suddenly they started dropping like crazy. And then the profits don't just disappear going forward, they actually reverse going backwards. Right? Because you lent out $500,000 on a house, and you're going to get paid 5% on the mortgage, right? So you're $500,000 on the house, you can get paid 5% on the mortgage. So the bank books that as a forward profit of, I don't know, whatever, probably 500,000 in interest. They're going to collect on that, so they're going to get their 500,000 back and get 500,000 interest. That's their plan. That's how they value that property. Then they sell it to somebody, so the bank gets money now against the future value of the loan. See how silly this is? So the bank has a projection of what they're going to make. A venture capital guy buys that projection for, let's say, 80%. So he gives 80% of the bank's future value cash to the bank. Now, what does the bank do? They take that money and they lend it again to another guy who's buying a $500,000 house. So now the bank is taking the same money and they've now relent it again, double. And now there's two houses out for the bank. Meanwhile, the venture capital guy flips the loan to various mortgage brokers and so on and so forth, and they take over the mortgage, and he does this and that, and they wrap it up in packages with the good loans with the really crappy loans to make the whole package balance out at like a B or C level, which they can sell, but they could never sell the D properties. But then they go, oh, look at that, we can now buy D loans, like practically dead, default loans. We can now buy D loans and package them up with some A and B loans, and we're going to average to a C, which people will still buy. So we're going to take loans nobody would ever in their right mind buy, package them up with loans that are valid, and put them in. But what's the flaw in that strategy? The valid loans failed. All of a sudden, the $500,000 home goes to $300,000, and the government lowers the debt. So now they refinance at a lower rate. So now there's no more stream of income that the bank was counting on. So now they've got an asset that's worth 40% less than they thought it was going to be. And they're collecting interest that is only probably even with what they borrowed the money for in the first place. So the bank borrowed at 3% and relent at 5%. They count their profits is going to be 2%. But all of a sudden, they've lost $200,000 on the house and they're making zero on the loan because the guy refinanced. And that's how the bank's current profits and projections begin reversing. And everything, so in other words, all the projections and all the actual profits that were being declared went backwards. And that's why it was such a drastic pullback in the economy. So the builders got killed, the banks got killed, the mortgage lenders got killed, anybody associated with the housing market got killed, including like Sherwin Williams and Home Depot and whatever. Everything going to collapse at the same time. We're not there now. That's not at all what's happening now. So we're not going to have that kind of crash again. It's extremely, extremely unlikely. China is doing exactly what we did in 2008. They're going to have that kind of crash. We're not going to have that kind of crash, but when China has it, it's still going to hurt us. But they're basically doing the same thing again. So for us, we're probably not going to have a major recession, but there's no reason we're not going to have a nice crash, 20 to 30% down in the markets. Because to some extent we're making the same mistakes, but nothing as drastic. I mean, that was just completely bonkers what was going on back then. But we'll see. So anyway, so we want to stay away from certain sectors that we're going to be worried about. We want to stay away from, and we want to concentrate on companies that are very good earners. So in other words, basically they have a really good PE ratio, but not just that they have. You have to be careful because a lot of PE ratios are misleading because you can, I will make a list, and we did, and we made a list of like 100 different companies that had PE ratios below 10, that didn't have too much debt, so on and so forth. That's what we started with, and half of them got thrown out really quickly because when you look at the PE ratio, you go, well, the PE ratio is bullshit. Same way I just explained on the mortgage companies how the PE ratio can be bullshit. There's a lot of companies out there with, for whatever reason, they're not going to be able to sustain those PEs, or they're abnormal for some reason. Like it's like because maybe they sold a division recently, collected a bunch of money, gave them a great income this year, but next year they can't repeat that performance. Not possible. So you have to look at a lot of stuff. So I've been looking at that. And the other thing I look at, and this is a good and bad for the U.S. Okay, so it's a minimum wage by state. Okay. Sure, we've done this before, but I'm just going to show it because it's a very important thing to be conscious of. Okay. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 20, 23. Okay, so like 23 states. Oh, didn't look in here. Nope, 23 states. Oh, yeah, I counted them. All right, so we've got 23 states that have $7.25 minimum wages. That is sick. Okay, that's really sick. But there's still another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 states. 14 states? I don't know if I counted them. No, I counted them before. Okay. Wait. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 states. All right. There's 14 states, 15 states, Delaware, which I guess I can't see. Yeah, it's that one. So there's 15 states where the minimum wage is $10 an hour or less. Also, completely unacceptable. $10 an hour means you work a 40-hour week, you get $400. Maybe 15% is going to come out for payroll taxes and things like that. So you're going to end up taking back $60 is $340 a week to live on. You know that's ridiculous. You know that. I mean, anybody with a kid in college knows it's not even even when the room is paid for, they can't live on $340 a week. You know, even when they have absolutely no housing expense, once they're off the meal plan, there's no way they're living on $340 a week. So, you know, and that's been accepted. And pretty much every state has a path to $15 an hour over the next 5 years. Almost every single state is on a path to $15 an hour. But that means also that the states, and this map isn't even current, that means the states that are, well, what does that say? Increase in effect by 2022, increase by 2023. Increase in effect by 2024. I guess it's supposed to be like some kind of, oh, I see, like Maryland with a 4. Oh, I see. Anyone with a number has a plan to go to 15. So there's all these guys, see New Jersey, Maryland, everybody's got a plan to go to at least $15. So everybody's going up, and even the ones that are semi-reasonable as far as the wages go are going up, and they're going to be, most states are going to be at 15, and if we keep electing Democrats, they're all going to be at 15 by, you know, within 8 years. Okay, because you know, Democrats aren't going to put up with this for more than 8 years. They've given everybody about 5 years to get things in line, and there is a plan. So the bottom line, though, is if you think about that, how is the Fed going to stop inflation if something as basic as wages are going to double in, I forget the number, 23 states, did we say, or whatever number of states it was? You know, it's going to double in all these states, and it's going to go up 50% in all the rest of the states. So now we're into like, in fact, it's easy to say this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So 13, 15 states. Oh, yep, 15 states. So 15 states where wages are not going to go up 50%, but they'll still go up quite a bit because they're going to keep up with the other states. But there's 15 states out of 50 where wages are not going to go up more than 50%. There's 35 states that it's going to go up 50%. And it's not even a population thing. California, of course, a big population state, but Texas, Florida, most populated states, Pennsylvania, most populated state, they have the Texas and Florida have the lowest wages. I mean, Texas and Pennsylvania, and Florida is not really far ahead of them. These are massively populated states. So any national chain, and in fact, somebody picked Starbucks as like their best stock pick for 2023. I'm like, you're on drugs. Because what do we look at then? Then we're going to look at a statistic that nobody usually pays attention to, and that's how much money does Starbucks make? SBUX. So how much money does Starbucks make per employee? I want to know how drastically a wage increase is going to affect them. So they make $4 billion a year, and they have oh, come on. Such a basic number. In the profile, they got 3,400 stores. Common stock, free float, employees, 402,000. There you go. I knew it would be somewhere. So, well, obviously, so we take $4 billion, right, divided by 423,000 employees. They only make $9,500 per employee. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. So what if you raise the employee's salary 10%? That's not much. That's not even gonna get you $8 an hour in most of the states that Starbucks is operating, right? So if you raise their employee salary 10%, I'm sorry, we said 420, so 423,000 employees, and let's say we raise them all times, let's just give them a $1 per hour raise times 40 hours per week times 52 weeks a year. That is $1 billion. So a $1 raise for Starbucks employees will cost them 25% of their profit. That's not good, because $1 is not enough. And there are states that are going to be mandatory for Starbucks, and they're mandatory $7 to $15, wherever that went. Going from $7 to $15 is not $1 per hour. Going from 8 to 15 is not $1. Going from 12 to 15 is not $1. All right, so Starbucks is in trouble. They are going to be constantly pressured by rising wages. Now the question is, how much can you keep raising the price of a cup of coffee? And also, obviously, the ingredients go up in price. Sugar's getting more expensive. Coffee's getting more expensive. Cups are more expensive. Other supplies are getting more expensive. It all matters. It all starts mattering a lot. And so Starbucks, nice of a company as it is not a company I invest in. In fact, frankly, with 30 times earnings now, I'd say they're short, because these earnings are not going to go up. They've got serious labor issues. They are not keeping up with giving people raises. So, so they're going to have serious margin issues going forward, and they're going to have pressure. So this is a nice way to figure it out when you start doing your employee to profit ratios. So we go to, like, Walmart is another one, right? They're nice guys. So they make $16 billion, but they got 2 million employees. 16.5. All right, call it 16.6. Let's be nice. $16.6 billion divided by 2 million people. $8,300. Worse than Starbucks. So how screwed do they get? That's the thing. You have to, and so yeah, of course the solution is raise your prices. But it causes margin issues, right? It causes customer issues. It chases your customers to the dollar store or whatever. You've got to think of all the moving pieces and whether or not it's easy for the customer to do that. Now, Boeing is a different story, right? Because Boeing, and it's not the one thing, because now with Boeing, I'm worried about the supply chain issues. They buy a lot of parts from overseas. They've got a lot of complex materials. They've got thousands of pieces in their planes. It's a little tougher, right? See, think about supply chain wise, Walmart, yeah, of course, they get a lot of shit from China, but if something doesn't come in, they just put something else on the shelf that did come in. They don't give it, they don't care. They care if it's something important to them, like, certain diapers or whatever don't come in. But realistically, they're just going to sell what's in stock. They're just going to put it on the shelves and people will buy it. Now, so here's Boeing. Boeing's not even making money, but in theory, let's say Boeing makes $5 billion. Let's say they can get back to $5 billion. So if they make $5 billion, they do that with I did this right. That's how I got to it. Oh yeah, there it is. Very nice. 142,000 employees. So when you get $5 billion, whoops, divided by 142,000 employees, see, they make $35,000 per employee. So if 135,000 employees, or 142,000 employees, look at that, they got almost the same amount of shareholders as employees. That's interesting. So 142,000 employees, and let's say a Boeing employee is going to make, you got to figure they're going to be better paid on the whole. So let's say they make 70,000 right now, right? So let's give them all $7,000 raises. Let's give them all 10% raises. So times $7,000 is $1 billion. So for Boeing, a 10% raise for the employees is going to cost them $1 billion out of $5 billion projected revenues, projected profit, sorry. So 20% of profit. So let's say I think in 2024 they'll make $4 billion, not $5 billion because of raises and such, right? Well, that's now going to be $4 billion divided by a 106 billion market cap is 25 times earnings. Now, that's not great, but it's not terrible. All right, that's why I was liking Boeing back here. I no longer, really particularly happy with them because there's a big difference between 120 and 150. So they're up to 177 now. So they were 125, now they're 177. That's like 50. It's like 40% higher than it was just a little while ago. But yeah, under 20, I'm happy with them. And so they were under 20 when we took an interest in Boeing. And that's why I started buying them, because I was like, okay, 20 times earnings, especially because they're coming out of their spending cycle and into their delivery cycle. So they should start getting back to this kind of numbers, like 5, 8, 10. And if they're at 5, 8, 10, I'm perfectly happy with that. And I'm not that worried because their employee ratio is reasonable. And you gotta look at every single company in your portfolio. You gotta look at like that and think about these people will get raises. Salaries will go up because inflation will not reverse. It will not go back down, other than oil, which was ridiculous. But it won't go. Things won't go directly back down. We're not going to have deflation. We're going to have wages catching up because also more wages is going to put more demand on goods and services, right? More people are going to have more money to spend on the same amount of goods and services. So unless we start producing more, and that's why the productivity index is so important, unless we start producing more, we're going to have continued inflationary pressure. So that's, so when somebody was saying, Gardling, I think, saying earlier, like, how do you pick a stock? That's how I pick a stock. You got to look at a lot of shit. And you got to think about what's going to be important in the next few years, or in the next 2 years, especially in the next 6 months. And what's going to be important is we're heading into a global recession. We're going to continue to have inflationary pressure no matter what the Fed does, because they have absolutely no control over the fact that wages are going up, existing wages for existing jobs. So it's not enough for the Fed to kill the demand for new jobs, and because 10 million, first of all, 10 million open jobs that are unfilled right now is a tremendous upward pressure, right? It means there's 10 million, there's companies with 10 million open positions that need a worker. And the worker starts to get like auctioned, right? Because an available worker with a skill set that you want, you're going to offer them more money to get them. At a certain point, the psychology breaks for the employer, and it's been decades since this has happened. So people don't even understand the mechanism anymore. But you used to be able to counter an employee. When an employee said, "I want to hire you," instead of saying, "Oh my God, thank you," like we have been doing for 20 years now, back in the 80s, we used to say, "Well, how much?" And they'd say, "We're going to pay you this much." And you say, "I don't know about that." And we used to negotiate the salary, we negotiated the bonuses, we negotiated the vacation time. renegotiated benefits and things. Everything was negotiated. And the employee felt empowered to negotiate. Now, part of that was a union psychology that permeated the country in the 60s and 70s and 80s. We all, whether you're in a union or not, you knew what a union was and you knew what unions got you. And you said, well, if I'm going to work somewhere, I expect to get benefits, I expect to get this, I expect to get that. And we expected raises. That hasn't happened since the 80s. It's been a long, long time since people have been paid properly. So there's going to be cost pressure. There's going to be wage pressure on these employees. So I don't want to be in a company that's not very productive. And as I said, Apple, and Apple's unusual, but just so you get the idea, Apple makes $100 billion, which is freaking incredible. I mean, that right there is even without any other information, the fact that they make $100 billion, it doesn't matter what they're asking for the company, which is 22 times earnings. It doesn't matter. It's $100 billion. Every year, they could buy Twitter, which was $44 billion for Elon Musk, and still have $60 billion left to spend. Yet they bought an entire social media company. Next year, they can buy GE. The year after that, they can buy Ford. The year after that, they can buy Coca-Cola. That's how much $100 billion is. They could basically, over the next 20 years, they can essentially buy the S&P 500. That's how much $100 billion is in income. How do you bet against a company like that? If they don't like the way the world looks, they can pay to fix it. No matter what the problem is, they've got money for it. They've got more money coming in than most companies have in value and market cap total. So who can outcompete Apple when they set their mind to something? And on top of that, they're good executors. So that's good too. All right. So anyway, so we got $100 billion. We've got la-di-da-di-da. Oh, there it is, 164,000 employees. So, oh, that's not a calculator. There it is. We got $100 billion. That's 100 million, 100 billion divided by 164,000 employees, $609,000 per employee. And I'm not sure why this says 164,000, but whatever. It's more than I'd seen previously as far as employees. It was more like 100. It was more like 100,000 employees. I don't know if that's I can't imagine what the difference would be. Anyway, so either way, 609,000 per employee. Compare that to Walmart making $8,000 per employee, or Starbucks, right? Around $8,000 per employee. It's not even a contest. You can give 164,000 employees times a $20,000 raise is only 3.2 million by 3.2 billion dollars. If you gave every Apple employee a $20,000 raise, that's only $3.2 billion. It's not even a rounding error in their total income. So Apple has absolutely no employee labor issues ahead of them. And again, because and also you look at the fact that, also a factor though, when you come up with your number, right? When you say this is what it would cost me if I gave everybody raises, you say, well, what would it take them to pay for that? It would take a 1% cost increase for them to overpay that number. So because they have $400 billion in income, if they raise their prices 1%, they could cover a $20,000 raise for every single Apple employee. So they're bulletproof on the labor front. That's how you look at it. And then you go down to debt, same thing for debt. They're bulletproof on the debt front too, because their net debt is $72 billion. They make that in 1 year. If you take 5% of $72 billion, it's $3.5 billion. Once again, A 1% increase in prices covers a 5% increase in debt, in interest payments. So they're bulletproof. They're bulletproof on debt. They're bulletproof on earnings. And what's happening now is they're making themselves bulletproof to China because they're making deals with chip companies that are building plants in America. They're going to start buying more. They're going to start making more and more of their sourcing from America because they found a vulnerability, and they don't want to ever have a vulnerability. And when you make $100 billion a year, as soon as you see a vulnerability, you make an adjustment. You say no more vulnerability, and that's what they're doing. They're pledging money to Taiwan Semiconductor and other people who are coming and building massive foundries in the U.S. to make chips for Apple. So it's going to cut down their shipping. It's going to cut down their lead times. It's going to give them a closer working relationship with the people they work with the factories that are producing their chips. And also, it's going to make sure Chinese government can never say, Apple, we're mad at you, therefore we're going to tariff you or do whatever. That's what you can do when you make $100 billion a year. You don't even spend any money. You just have to promise somebody your business, and they're like, "Yes, sir. What can I do for you? Would you let me just you want me to build a $40 billion factory in America? I will absolutely do that for you, sir." That's what Taiwan Semiconductor is doing, and they're worried about China too, so they're happy to have something in America. All right. Anyway, so that's talking about factors and recessions and so much and so forth. Dan says, I have a Rio bull call spread and short puts. The stock is going up the last couple of days, but the calls have been losing value. I guess it's volatility dropping. That is correct. It is volatility dropping. It's don't let your portfolio dictate your decisions, because they are not correct. You know, if the stock goes up, if I can find where's my charts? Charts. This is annoying. I don't have a little chart picture. No, okay, I don't have a tab for it. All right, whatever. Nope, I don't want to use that one. I don't want to use that one. I gotta use something. Oh, I guess I can use this. I always forget they have a chart because I never use it for that. Rio. I never think to actually just use it for the chart. So yeah, look at that. I mean, went from 50 to 70. So again, nice 40% move in a very short amount of time. But the thing is, if you were at 50 and you bought a 60-70 spread for like $4, right? Now you're totally in the money, but the spread is only like $6. Why? Because the 70s now have a huge amount of premium because you're at 70, and the 60s have lost premium. But that doesn't matter. You're at 70. You're at your full $10 value. So if you hold on to it and wait patiently, you'll get your $10. That's what you went in the trade for. Same thing for the puts. Who cares what the number says? The problem is when it goes up fast, the volatility of the internal volatility of the options remains high, and therefore the short 70 calls you sold, or whatever you sold, are going to have a lot of premium in them. And that looks bad in your portfolio. But is it bad? No. Your spread is covered. Your goal is at the end of 2024, the end of 2025, not the end, the beginning, but in 2024, 2025, your goal is to be over 70, and you will get $10. That's a scientific fact. If you have a 60-70 spread and it's over 70, you'll get $10. The difference between that $10 that you will get and what it's at now for a net is how much you will make if it stays above this price. The rest is patience and rationality. Doesn't matter what you and also, by the way, the broker screen is going to pick the worst. So in other words, for the stock you own, it's going to show you the bid. And for the short you sold, it's going to show you the ask. So it's creating a very false thing. And that's why it's interesting, because in our portfolios, I noticed this with the long-term portfolio. In our portfolios, when we actually go to cash things out, we do way, way, way better than what it was showing us. There's a significant amount of money left on the table based on the numbers that you see in the portfolios, because those are showing you the absolute worst case. It's showing you the the ask of what you want to buy, which you're not going to pay, and it's showing you the bid of what you're going to sell, which you're not going to sell for. So it's the big problem with broker screens when you do a lot of options, and you need to get used to that. You need to focus on what something is really at. You know, when I look at, if I look at Rio and I've got a 60-70 spread, I'm looking at this and saying, I got $10 here. I just got to wait for it. Whatever the net of the spread says for the broker, I don't give a crap. In fact, let's look. Let's go to Rio. Rio. 2025 60s are, well, see, look at it, look how wide that spread is, right? $15, $19.40. Of course, it's going to look awful because your broker is going to tell you that if you're selling it, you're only going to get 15. The reality is somebody just got 18 as the last price, right? But your broker is going to show you that you're, even if you just bought it this second for $17.89, the bid is 15. It's going to show you that you lost money already. But you know, so basically, right between 15 and 1940 is what, 17. So let's call it $17 for the 60s, and how much for the 70s? And the 70s, again, a super wide spread, $10, $13.60. So, and the last was 12. So in reality, it's, let's just use the last. In reality, it was $17.89 and 12. So it's $5.70 basically for the spread, for the $10 spread. That's what it's showing now, even though you're $10 in the money. So right now, if you spend $5.75 for the spread, you'll make $4.25, and all it has to do is stay where it is right now for 2 years. You got to be patient. But if you buy the 60-70 spread, what's going to happen is your broker is going to tell you that your 60s are worth 15 and the 70s are 13.60. So it's going to tell you your spread is worth $1.40, because it's going to tell you whatever the bid is going to tell you the bid, the lowest possible price for the option you own, and it's going to show you the ask, the highest possible price for the option you sold. So a spread that you're going to pay $5.75 for, as soon as you buy it, is going to show that it's only worth $1.40. It's total nonsense. You have to understand that if you're going to trade options. You have to understand what's going on mechanically in your portfolio. And you learn to accept that. Because, I mean, frankly, for $1.60, I mean, just, you know, if it shows you the spread is worth $1.60, just put in a bid and say, I'll buy more for $1.60 and see if you get a fill. You'll never get a fill. It will never fill that price, because that price is ludicrous. $2, $3, you will never get a fill. 100% over what your broker is telling you your spread is worth, you can't get a fill. It's not possible. Not unless it drops, you know, not unless Rio drops 20 bucks. But you're not going to get a fill of $3 on a $10 spread that's in the money. That's not going to happen. You'd be very, very lucky to get $5 in the spread in the fill. But your broker is very happy to tell you the spread's worth $1.60. They'd love it if you sold it for that price. That would make them very, very happy. So, you know, that's one thing you really have to get over, is like, it's all nonsense. It's just, it's not a real thing. So, you know, when you say I'm losing value, you're not losing value. You know, the broker wants you to think you're losing value because they want to panic you into selling. They want you to churn your portfolio and jump out of things and sell at bad prices. They want you to make poor decisions. That's how they make money. They don't make money by you sitting on a, they don't make money by you sitting in a stock and patiently waiting for it to improve. They do, that's not how they make money. It doesn't do them any good at all if you take a position and stay in it. Oh, natural gas. I forgot natural gas. Shit. All right, so where are we? God damn it. Forgot all about them. Natural gas, natural gas. I bet I blew some money now. It was 70. It was like such a good, I was like perfectly happy to take that. See, could have gotten out at 75. Yapping away. Could have gotten pissed off there too. All right, so 570. So basically, because before we did this a while ago when it was crossing back over 550, I took 4 more, and now we can start selling at 570, and we'll sell 1. Ooh, you bastard! See, as soon as I put it in there, and so 1 here. Oh, and see how they both went? That's another very important lesson, by the way. Never ever believe these things. Never believe that this is a real price. You put in the price you want. Don't put in the price that they're telling you. Because see, as soon as I put that in, they dropped it down because they were hoping I would chase it down. But the reality is they want to buy. All right, so I sold 2 now. That gives me a huge buffer because I've locked in a lot of profit. And so now, unless we go back below like 565, I'm not going to sell anymore. But I'm not going to put in 565 because if I do that, they're going to flush that stop. Well, that's a hard one to flush. But in other words, when they see when the big boys who trade, when they see the orders, and you can see the orders. See how that says 6, right? I can see that, and you can see. They've got better screens than I do. They can see all of these things. They can see exactly how many people are bidding on each level and how many people are asking on each level. They see every one of those things filled out. And so they see when you put something in, they will, if they have a chance, they will flush it out and cascade all these orders at a lower price, and then they'll take it right back up. That's how they do it. And if they can make 1/10 of a cent doing that kind of stuff, they'll do it. They're happy to make it. But you saw that was significantly below 570. I put in sell at 570, and after first dropping, and then they go, okay, fine, we'll take the 570 because I didn't budge. And you know what? And also because I'm a real person, not a computer. A computer will jump up and down and move the spread around following it. So that's what they're looking for too. But I'm a real boy. And meanwhile, that's great. Look at the profit for this 8,000 something blah 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 already. And the reason that says P&L at the open, that's because the 2 that are left are up $5,000. That's how they go by. So now we're at 72, and I'm not making a call here. I'm just saying I'm very happy. I took half off at 570 as we started at 550. So even if it goes all the way to 560, I'm still going to make an average of, I'm going to make 2,000 on these and 1,000 on those, right? So I'm going to make 4,000 and wait. 2,000 on 2 is 4,000, and then 1,000 on 2 is 6,000. So the least I would make is $6,000. That would be stupid though, because I'm up $9,000 right now. And now 580 is almost certainly going to get rejected. So we get close to 580. Why would I stay in? And we already got rejected at 575. So now I'm going to say, okay, I'll take 575. Let's see if that fills. Oh, see what happened? This is how the algorithm works. You're playing against a machine that's programmed to take your money. The second I put it in, it dropped the bids. There's just some great big algorithms doing this trading. So most of the stuff you see there is fake. They pull the order. This is the algorithm puts an order in, pulls an order, puts an order in, pulls an order, pulls it in before it can be taken, because it's just trying to jack the price up and down and to find a sucker who's going to underpay or oversell. So what I'm saying is now I'm saying, okay, you can't play and pretend you're at 575 anymore unless you're willing to pay me. Because they were just pretending to be at 575. They weren't really at 575, because the second I said, okay, I'll take 575, they're like, oh, no, we didn't mean that. It's all manipulated bullshit. You have to understand that. There's, in the longer run, there's going to be a market and pricing, but in the intraday stuff, it's all bullshit. So I got my one at 575. If it keeps running up, it's going to hit it eventually. And otherwise, if it gets back to 570, I'm going to get sick of it and probably sell and take my money. but I wouldn't mind getting 575. I'm going to be content there. But it's hysterical because here somebody's pretending. Oh, where'd they go? It's so funny. Somebody's pretending they want 7 right here. They're pretending they want 4. Oh, pretending they want 2. So let me see if right here. I'm going to go under him and say I'm going to sell 1. Watch what happens. Oh, it filled. All right. Well, it's like it's not real. So what they're doing is poking around, seeing who the real trades are, and they're having a hard. They haven't gotten back to me yet, but they'll get back to me. And so if that triggers, I should be out just about $9,000. So that's good for 4. For how long were we in this thing? It was only from 12:30. So what time is it now? 2:30. It's pretty good. Not bad for a couple of hours work. And ideally, what I like to do is when it crosses, our line right now is 550. That's been a very good support line for us. So when it crosses over 550, I get in. And well, you can't tell now because the change. But when it comes around 550, that's when I get in. I'll usually go with 2 or 4. I usually want an even number. And as soon as I make some money, except I got distracted and forgot, which was lucky for me because I probably would have taken money at 560. But because that was right when the webinar started, I was busy and forgot about it, and then went up and then it went back down. But generally, what I'm going to do is at 560, let's say I made $1,000 per contract. I'm going to take 1 or 2 off the table, so I lock in a profit because now I'm under no circumstances going to let it go below 550 on me. So I'm going to make at least $1,000. But if I'm lucky, it's going to go up, and now my other 3 or my other 2 are going to be up $2,000. And again, I'm going to sell 1, and I'm going to let the other one ride maybe and say, okay, this will be my bounce line. This is where I'm going to get out for the last one, which is where we are now. So now I'm asking 575, but if it goes to 560, I'm going to be like, okay, fine, I'll take the 560. But you have to understand that this is most likely just a computer algorithm that is programmed not to give you what you want. Notice it will not go back to 575 now. It was all enthusiastic until I said, I'll take 575. All of a sudden now it's like, well, we didn't really mean it. It's almost comical. Anyway, so that's how you do that. Yes, so Gardling is happy that we talked about what we talked about. Anyway, what else is going on? Because we're already 2:15, which is crazy. Crazy. It was a long discussion. What have we been talking about this week? Okay, so yeah, let's look at this stuff because here's so we started the week off, and if we can look at the S&P gallery view, SPX. So here's Monday morning, and that's 9 o'clock. Here's pre-market. Well, no, that's not pre-market. Anyway, all right. Here's Monday morning. We're at 4050, right? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, right? So here's Monday morning. We're at 4050. Things are looking okay. Last week, we were at 4100. We had dropped off a little bit, but still in pretty good shape. Although the 200-day moving average is 4040. So we were a little bit above on Monday morning, above the 200-day moving average. There's that spot right there. So we were a little bit above the 200-day moving average, and we seemed okay. But I said that this is owing to what had been going on last week. Was China is easing their COVID policy, which is what we just talked about. And they hadn't eased their policy really. All they did was take off the lockdowns on a couple of things. And I said that China's moves are just another lever they're using to send the retail investors in and out of stocks. I said, there's not something you should really go with. Oh, hear that? I don't know if you heard that, but that was I got my price. 8,980, damn it. Missed it by 20 bucks. Pissed off. See, and they finally paid me. Patience. This is a patience game. You have to be more patient than the computer is. It's very hard. So, more contagious COVID variants have made maintaining kind of, it's just what is the same stuff I just talked about. Okay, so it's still very important. But that's important though. I said it's a propaganda shit needs to shift as well, because you've got a whole population that's been told for 3 years that COVID is the worst thing that could possibly happen and that we're keeping you in for your own protection. Now they have to change the story and say, well, COVID's not that big of a deal, so let's go outside and have fun. You know, after having it drilled into your head for 3 years, but it's horrible. It's very tricky. Now I talked about OPEC, and there was a rumor that they were going to reduce their production levels that have been keeping oil up for the last few weeks, and it was still up. And I said, this is not going to happen. It's BS rumors of OPEC production cuts. So the excuse to manipulate oil is now shifted to China's reopening, which is more bullshit because it's going to take a long time, and the EU tightening sanctions against Russia, which doesn't effectively ban the oil, which I think I talked about further down here. Oh yeah. So in other words, the sanctions are banning Russian oil that sells for over $60, yet Russia's oil is currently trading at $50. So there's no ban. If their oil is trading at $50 and it's below $60, there's no ban. There's no reason for Russia's oil not to be traded. So when would the ban trigger? Well, the Russian oil would have to go up to 60 from 50, so it'd have to go up 20% from here, right? And our oil, now our oil on, I said Brent. So Brent oil on Monday was $88. All right, so I said Brent oil would have to go over 100, right? Because 88 times 1.2 is 105.6. All right, so I said Catherine Force. Now, all right, so but first Brent crude now, 87.50. So Brent crude 87.50 would have to be back over 100, and that's not likely. So it's all a lot of hot air, and there's no reason for crude or for West Texas oil to be at 82.50 this morning. So it's a short, blah, 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 right? All right, so that's how I call the short. And I went over like my logic to how I was calling the short and why I was calling the short. All right, and what happened? Well, oil went from here on Monday morning all the way down to here. It's a tremendous loss, but it's because, and I know everybody would love to get this easy trade feed, blah blah blah, to just do this, just do that. But you got to understand the logic behind it. And all last week we were talking about, why is oil going up? Well, oil is going up for dumb reasons. And so it peaked out on Monday. We weren't shorting last week because we were waiting to see what actually happened with OPEC, but it peaked out over the weekend. And now all of a sudden they got no pants because OPEC did not over the weekend decrease their production. Russia made a strong statement about the sanctions, but the reality of the sanctions is you figure it out with math. What did Putin say? If you sanction me, I'll stop providing oil. Well, first of all, that's probably bullshit. But even if it's not bullshit, he's not going to get sanctioned unless oil goes up 20%. So $60 sounds like a little to us because we're paying $82 a barrel, but that's the going rate for Russia's oil. It's $50 a barrel. And so 20% to get to the sanction level at 60, it has to go up 20%. 20% more than what we're paying now is over 100. over 100 is not happening. Not economically sustainable for another 1,000 reasons we've discussed before. But that's how you make a trade. You have to understand what's happening, and you have to have all the pieces in place, and you have to have things lining up. So you say, now is the time to make this trade because of this math, because of these reasons, because of what they're saying, because of what's been said. And even then, you're going to be wrong half the time, maybe, hopefully less than half the time, hopefully only 40% of the time. But if you're right 60% of the time, and you manage your money effectively, and you keep stops for when you're wrong, and you have your winners running long, this is a $10,000 move in oil in a couple of days. $10,000 contracts in a couple of days, just based on what we were paying attention to. And then there's no Fed speakers this week, so we didn't. And again, you have to say what's going to happen between now and then. There's no Fed speakers. There's nothing going on. Nothing major is going to change. These reports are not going to be that moving. And then economic calendars. Why I do this every Monday. And who's reporting? No, obviously no oil companies reporting or anything like that. There's nothing in your way. I don't care. Oh, I said I like these guys, these Momo guys. If China's reopening, I think these guys should do well, but so far they're kind of flat. And that was Monday. Then Tuesday, the oil shorts made money, obviously. All right, so that's just talking about that. Then natural gas. So that's when I shifted to natural gas, because I'm like, okay, well, oil might bounce, but natural gas should certainly bounce. And so we played natural gas along and made money on that. All right, and then we're watching the hedges. Oh, that's important. I'll get back to that here, because we'll talk about some hedges in the short-term portfolio. I did that Monday. So, now this line starts failing again, and this 200-day moving average is dangerously getting close to here. See, once this 200-day moving average crosses below the 4,000 line, it's going to make the 4,000 line really, really hard to break over, because it's already a natural resistance line, and then you're going to combine it with a 200-day moving average failing. Very, very bad. And now, if this line breaks, the retrace line, because the 50-day is going to be over the retrace line. So if this now breaks the retrace line, it's going to break the 50-day as well. And then we're in dire straits. Then you're going to get what you call a death cross, because then this red line is going to start heading below the blue line eventually. And that's extremely, extremely very bad technical stuff. Blah, 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 blah. And then the NASDAQ also very disappointing, because here's the same problem. You're consolidating here. Your 50-day is going to come under the 200-day moving average, right? That's going to be ugly. And this consolidation here is more likely to get squeezed down than up. So we're not in really good shape. And then that brought us to today, where I said, well, okay, so if we're going to have any hope at all, we got to look at Apple, which is 20% of the NASDAQ. Again, they keep trying to cut it down. Every time Apple gets to be 20% of the NASDAQ, they reshuffle the NASDAQ to try to make Apple like 10% again. But then it always creeps back up. This time it wasn't so much Apple going up in value, but everybody else got killed except Apple. Apple's still worth 2.3 trillion. So they can't help it. It keeps happening. So this got worse, as you can see. But what are we doing? We're bouncing between this line and that line. And what happens is this bounce gets squeezed, because this line is going to keep rising and until it breaks one way or the other, right? This will keep rising. Even when this is up, it's still pulling this line higher, which means it's going to be a tighter and tighter squeeze. But this guy is still falling at a pretty rapid clip. So he's going to keep going like this. So we're like what, like 2 months out. So he's going to keep going like this, and he's going to keep going like that, also 2 months out. So basically 2 months from now, on February 7th. Oh, I do on Jackie's birthday, it's February 6th. All right, so on Jackie's birthday, we're going to be at a cross of 12,000, and things can turn extremely, extremely ugly. And we've got a Fed meeting, and we've got the earnings will be starting up again, and so on and so forth. But this is a really dangerous time. So we are, that brings us in nicely, right? So we are heavily in cash and heavily hedged. And the short-term portfolio, wow, is up considerably. So this is a $200,000 portfolio in 2020, and it's now, so 2 years later, $3.7 million, basically all cash, and yet this represents $4.6 million of additional protection, these hedges. So wow. And again, we just keep nailing the turns. We have called the turns correctly, I'm pretty sure, every single time for the last 2 years. So in other words, this portfolio started in October of 2020, the short-term portfolio. We thought the market was in October of 2020. We had cashed out all of our portfolios around this time. We cashed all of our old portfolios, got cashed out around this time. So these were all new portfolios. We were bearish because that's why we cashed out. We cashed out in November of 19 because we were bearish. Oh, I'm sorry, this is October 2020. I'm very confused. But we cashed out most of our portfolios in November of 2019. For whatever reason, we redid the short-term portfolio here, and we started with a clean slate. That's what we did. And I think it was because we were being bullish, but we were being bullish for a while. But then when we got to this spot, we like totally shorted the market. We shorted the shit out of the market here and caught this massive downturn and just, made ridiculous, insane amounts of money. Is that really October? Is October 2020? Yeah, I don't remember why we redid the short-term portfolio, but we did. But it was just 200,000 bucks at the time. And so we played on the way up. We played the long game. We sold a lot of short hedges and made money there. But then when this came along and we topped out at 60, when we were over 16,000 on the NASDAQ, we were like totally short everything. We took massive short positions, and they paid off like crazy. But not only that, but even this, it's a weekly chart. So is it weekly or monthly? Weekly. It's a weekly chart. We called this turn, we played that, we called that correctly, then we flipped bearish again. We called this correctly. We expected 12,000-ish to hold or whatever. I think 11,000 was our target. We called it down here. We went long again, then we went short again. I mean, every time we hit it. It was crazy. It's been a crazy couple of years doing this. And again, now, and this is the thing, by the way, because they're always asking, well, what is your prediction for 2023? Blah, blah, blah. Where's everything going to be? I don't know. Okay. I don't know. And if I don't know, I like to go to cash, and we're in cash right now because I don't know. And when I say cash, it means that we have a huge amount of cash. It doesn't mean we're in cash. We obviously, like I said, we have $4 million worth of shorts in this portfolio, $4.6 million worth of shorts. But the key to it is the way we structure our shorts, we're not going to lose a lot of money. I know that seems weird, but they're not. Because if you look at the short, TZA, right? See, that's plus 380, minus 372. This is a net zero spread. Net zero. But if TZA goes to 70, it's only at 32 now, so it's not likely. But if TZA goes to 70, this 400 will be $1.2 million. So it's at zero, and I make $1.2 million at 70. Now, over 70, I'm overselling. I sold 600 shorts against 400 longs. So over 70, I'm in trouble. But I don't think TZA is going to go over 70. It's at 32 now. It would have to go up 100%. 100% divided by 3, because it's a 3 times ETF, is 33. So the Russell would have to fall 35% for us to go over 70. And it has to do that in 12 months. And even over 70, I've still got $1.2 million before I start paying anything back here. So at 80, I would have to pay 600,000 of my 1.2 million back. I'd still make $600,000 at 80. And that's, again, assuming I never adjust and I don't roll and I don't do anything else. Obviously, the simplest thing to do is to spend another zero to buy another spread that covers this spread. That's an even higher, more ridiculous amount. But we're talking 35% down on the Russell. I don't believe the Russell is going to fall 35%, so that's my play. So I've oversold the 70 calls, and I've bought the invested in the 40 calls, which are not even in the money. But 20% is going to pop the TZA 60%, and it's going to go from 32.6 times 1.6 to 52. So I'll be $12 in the money times 400, $480,000. So we'll make $480,000 if the Russell drops 20%. We'll make a whopping 1.2 million if it drops 35%. So I'm not going to be upset if it drops more than 20%, right? It has to go all the way to 35 before it starts being a problem for me. But even at 35, even 35% down, I'm still not in trouble. It has to be 40, 45% down before it's even a bother. That's the kind of hedge. So that's why these hedges make such tremendous amounts of money, though, right? Because I paid zero for this. This was a zero cost spread with 1.4 million in protection. Sometimes we get paid on that protection. And that's exactly what happened here. Is we had protections like that paid the 1.4 million. It bounced exactly where we thought it was going to bounce, and we never and it expired. They were close enough to expiration at the time. They expired before we got any damage. So we took the money, and in fact, frankly, we did. We were very aggressive. We took the profit off the table here on the longs. And then we didn't, and then we bought back the shorts over here. So we took the maximum amount of profit here, and then bought back the shorts. So made so we actually made more money than the spread was. So in other words, we had a $30 spread. We sold, no, it was 25. We took 25 off the table on TZAs. Remember that? It was the SQQ. We actually took more money off the SQQs, like $35 cashed in on a $30 spread, that kind of stuff, because we cashed in the longs at 35 bucks and then waited on the short ones to go out of the money, and then we bought those back and made a huge profit. So it's crazy. So we have a similar setup with the SQQs. We have 500, 800 longs, and it looks like we have 1,200 shorts, but we don't, because these January 70s are going to expire in 44 days. And there's no chance we're going to be at 70 in 44 days. So these will expire worthless, and we're going to make the entire $211,000 we sold them for. So it did seem risky when we took it at the time, but I was very adamant about being in April. I was very adamant about being extremely confident that there was no chance in hell. Here we are in April, right? That's when we sold them, when it was way down here. And I said, there's no chance in hell we're going to fail the 11,000 line. And we did kind of fail it here, but not for long. But I said this 11,000 line is going to hold up, and therefore I don't see how it's even possible that 70 is going to come into play. And so we collected $200,000 here that expires here if the NASDAQ isn't down here, basically at 10.5-ish. So there you go. That's how you make money selling. That's how you make money on hedges, even when you're wrong. That's really kind of the key to it. It's like, it's like you hedge your hedges. But to do that, it's not, this is not an option strategy. And this is a problem with basically everybody else who plays options, and all the people and all these gurus who do options. They are not fundamental investors at all. They are option strategists. And this is not an option strategy. This is a fundamental analysis of the market where we apply options to make money. But that is not an option strategy. There is no always do this or always do that or do this or do that. You have to look at the actual market conditions and consider what's going to happen over the next 12 months. And you set your parameters and you make your bet, and then you watch very carefully to make sure. And let me tell you something, it is gut-wrenching, because we went through some very tough times, because when this was happening, this was beyond where we thought it was going to be. And if this had actually gone all the way down to 10,000, we would have been in big trouble. But instead of panicking, we rechecked our premise and decided that this was an incorrect move. And we actually got more aggressively bullish at this point, because we said this is not a realistic move. Then when we hit 12,000, what did we just do? Just 2 weeks ago, exactly at 12,000, we cashed everything out, because I said this is now too much. The same way I said this is too low, this is too high. And so we went the other way, and now we're much more aggressively bearish. Although still, we don't believe that we're going to lose more than $500,000 in this portfolio if we're wrong about if the market goes up. We think we're okay, and we're only going to lose about $500,000. Fine. Then the long-term portfolio is going to make so much more money than $500,000. So much, ridiculously more. It is already up. Well, this started out with $500,000. That was in 2019. That's when we reset our portfolios for the most part. So they started out with $500,000. We're now at $2.8 million here, $2.3 million in cash. But these 500,000 are fairly aggressive positions. So if things go well, let's see if we have an example. Here's wheat and precious metals, which is already in the money, right? So this spread was 110 minus 60 is 50,000. So it's basically a $50,000 spread. But if it goes all in the money, it's going to be a $150,000 spread. So we're going to make $100,000 on this spread if wheat and precious metals stays over 40 into January 25. Currently, the net is about $80,000. So we're up from 50 to 80 from September. So people would say that's good, right? That's 60% up since September, but it's nothing I'm going to sell it over, because it's a $150,000 spread, and I'm very, very confident that wheat and precious metals is worth more than $40. So even right now, if you take this spread for $80,000, I think it's a good trade, because it's going to be $150,000. You're going to make $70,000. That's a lot of money. All right, it's a lot more exciting when we start at $50,000 or 60. What did we say we start at? 50. So we start at 50 and we make 100. That's 200%. But you're a little late. We already made 60%, so it carves into it. But those are the kind of trades we have in the long-term portfolio. Here's AT&T. We think it's going to 25. At 25, this guy will be worth $100,000, right? It's 20,000 times 5, right? So at 25, this will be worth $100,000. It's currently worth $31,000. At 25, this guy will be worth $200,000. Oh no, it won't, because I'm sorry, there's a break on here. We sold these short calls. So this set will be worth $100,000 because it stops at $5. But right now it's only valued at $50,000. So this one will make $70,000 and this one will make $50,000. That's $120,000. And the net of this spread right now is 99 minus 42 plus 31 minus 24, $64,000. So it's a $64,000 current net spread that can be worth up to $200,000. So we can make $130 something thousand, basically another 200% winner on this one, if all goes well. Not always all goes well, but that's the point. If all doesn't go well, then the short-term portfolio kicks in and pays us money. So one of these guys is going to pay us a lot of money. It's a question of which one. And frankly, that's the point, though. If you watch the market over time, they both pay you money. That's why we like to go with the 20-25 spreads. I want 2 years, because look what happens in 2 years. Up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Okay? And as long as we keep zigzagging, and as long as we are conscious of where the zigs and the zags are, then we can determine when we're going to get bullish, when we're going to get bearish, and we keep improving our positions on both sides. You know, when our longs are doing well, we take money, we take profit from the shorts. I'm sorry. When the longs are doing well, we take profit from the longs. Let's be consistent. When the longs are doing well, we take profit from the longs and we put more money into the shorts. It's going to rain. It's like I play a clip sometimes, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, right? With the 7, the Bible story, the 7 years of good and of plenty and the 7 years of famine that follow. That's just called a cycle. It's always a cycle. And it's hard to sometimes say where the top and the bottom of the cycle is unless you happen to be able to do charts like we do. But there's going to be a cycle. The question is identifying it. And if you identify the cycle correctly, then when you get near the bottom of the cycle, you start buying more longs. When you get to the top of the cycle, you start buying more shorts. It's not complicated, but you've got to be patient and you've got to know the difference between a mid-cycle move like this and a proper turn like this. How obvious can that be, though, right? I mean, this is, to me, we called the top of the range 15,000. I could not freaking believe we went to 16.5. But what is 16.5? It's a 10% overshoot of 15,000. It didn't violate. We weren't wrong about 15,000. These guys were wrong. We weren't wrong. This was a correct line. And that's proven out by the way we fell back and the way we retraced. This was the correct line. We were supposed to go from 10,000 to 15,000 and consolidate there if we were going to move higher. But we didn't. We flew right over it, didn't consolidate. Finally, people, you got to the point, this is what happened. You get to the point where the values are so ridiculous that you can't get it any higher. And we talked about this at the time. I talked about the 70 times multiple on the Russell that could not possibly be sustained. And we were at 40 times on the S&P, could not possibly be sustained. It's not realistic. You can't afford. It's like, I live in Delray Beach in Florida, and the rents along the avenue, the main avenue that goes to the beach, there's like a 1-mile section of road, Atlantic Avenue it's called, and it goes to the beach, and it's just nothing but shops and restaurants, blah, blah, blah. Every single thing along the avenue is shop or a restaurant, mostly restaurants. So yeah, you get a ton of people all the time. It's the hot spot for Fridays and Saturday nights. It's completely packed. The town is always busy, always has people, and always new people who are on vacation and spending money and so on and so forth. So, and the restaurants get top dollar. But even getting top dollar, the problem is that the rents for these restaurants have gotten ridiculous. And they've gotten to the point where, a restaurant with a normal restaurant, like let's say 30 tables, 40 tables, right, is going to pay $20,000 a month in rent. And we're not New York City. That's a hard nut to crack. And unfortunately what keeps happening is these restaurants, they come in, they go out, they come in, they go out, because when push comes to shove, you can't make that much money to cover your rent. It's too much. And that's the problem. And there are certain things that are too much. And that's when values get to a certain point, when rents get to a certain point, they actually do become unaffordable. There isn't just infinite money to put into stocks, no matter what the price is. At a certain point, it's not affordable. There isn't enough money to cover it, or they become better alternative investments. And that's also what the Fed did, is because the Fed kept raising rates, and bonds had a better chance of making you 5% than a stock did. Because the stock is already at such a ridiculous amount of money that it's almost never going to be able to keep up with a 5% annual return. That's how we know where the top is. And on the bottom, it's the same thing. This stock is so cheap that there's not a better thing to do than to buy the stock at this spot. So when a stock gets to this level, it's a buy. When a stock gets to that level, it's a sell. I could love the stock. This is the whole NASDAQ, but I mean, if it was a stock, I could love the stock, but it still has a too much and it still has a too little. That's how we make our money, by paying attention to that stuff. And we look, and we know that this is all noise because it isn't too much and it isn't too little. So while it's in here, it could do a lot of stuff, but I don't really give a crap. I'm not going to take an action while it's doing what it's supposed to do. And so recently, what we've done in the last couple of weeks is we've had, we were picking our trade of the year, and we have a watch list from that. We have the long-term portfolio, which we cut. We had 30 at least puts before. We now have 5. So we cut most of our short puts. Every single one of the puts that we cut is on a watch list. We had 60 spreads. We now have 40. So we cut 20 of our 60 spreads. And the spreads that we have, though, we think are great. Every single one of these guys is a great one. But you know what? The 40 we cut are also great. So those go on our watch list. And if they get cheaper, we'll buy them again. I just don't want to ride out a recession with those 20 stocks. Those 20 stocks, for whatever reason, some of them because they did really well, like IBM. IBM did so well, I can't keep it. Too high. Not too high overall, but too high coming into a recession. I don't think they're going to be bulletproof to the market. I don't want to ride out a recession. If they come back down, I'm going to jump all over them. My favorite was our stock of the year for this year. 2022 stock of the year. Done. We just cashed it out of the portfolio. I left Intel because Intel hasn't performed like IBM did. But Intel, look at this. We picked $30 and it's already at 28. And by the way, look at this spread. Here's another one. See, we took the spread around September. It's 84 minus 48 minus 28. Wow, that's 60, 76, 84 is like 8,000. So about 8,000 total dollars for the spread. And how much is the spread? It's 80 times 10 is an $80,000 spread that we bought for $8,000 net. Oh, we aggressively sold the 35 puts, so I really need Intel to go over 35. It's a very aggressive put sale. But if Intel gets to 35, the puts expire worthless, and we get $80,000 on the spread. So we're going to make 10 times our money back on the spread. If Intel is at 30, we sold 30 puts, so we would owe 30 times 5 is $15,000 back on the short put. So if Intel is only at 30, we're going to get 80,000, but we have to give 15 of it back, so we'll have 65,000 from our net 8,000 investment. So that's why we went aggressive, because I do think Intel can get to 35. If it doesn't get to 35 and it only gets to 30, it's no big deal. I'm still going to make $56,000 on my $8,000 investment. See, and that, by the way, is the balance between the long-term and short-term portfolio, right? Because if things go well, we're going to make 100,000 here, 200,000 here, 50,000 there, blah, 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 which is exactly how we got to $2 million in the first place, because that's what we've been doing for the last 2 years. And generally, for the last 2 years, the market has gone up and up and up, right? Here's the last 2 years. Now it came back a little bit, but on the whole, we started here in 19. We weren't expecting a good market in the beginning of the year, but then when we crashed, we were all, we basically had brand new portfolios. We bought like crazy, All of our wildest dreams came true because what we did is we bought January 22 spreads basically on everything. We always try to go 2 years out. We bought January 22 spreads for all our stocks. The market doubled, and by the fall here, we decided it was too high. We cashed everything out, and then we made all our money on the short-term portfolio. Could not possibly have gone better. Really could not. I mean, obviously, because who the hell makes this kind of money in a normal world? It's not a normal world, and it was fueled by stimulus. It was fueled by outside interference and so on and so forth. It's not natural, and I'm certainly not indicating that we're going to be able to do this all the time. But we just did it, and we did it for those reasons. All right. So going forward, though, the philosophy is always going to be the same. The strategy is going to be the same. We buy low, we sell high, we pick fundamentally good stocks, and we pay close attention to the conditions that drive the market going forward, so that we're looking at, it's a lot of stuff. It really is. I know it's dense and it's a lot of things to take in, but that's why it works. All right, because we're doing the work. We're willing to do a lot more than all these other assholes who try to pick trades and pick stocks and do this. They're so one-dimensional in their thinking that, yeah, of course you're going to be right sometimes if you're one-dimensional. I always buy a stock after a 20% pullback because 90% of the time they do. You know, it's like, who cares? All right? No, I buy a stock because I see it went down enough. I think the entire market is down. So in the NASDAQ, since I think the NASDAQ is bottoming, who in the NASDAQ has bottomed more than the NASDAQ? And of those people, who didn't deserve that kind of punishment? And of those, who do I think fundamentally is going to be the best performer going forward, given the current market conditions and the macro environment? That's when I buy a stock. And it's a lot of freaking work. It really is. But it's the whole ball game. It's the difference between being right 50% of the time and being right 60, 70% of the time. And if you're right 60, 70% of the time and you have a good risk reward ratio every time you invest, which again is a criteria. If we don't have a good risk reward ratio, we don't buy it. Even if it's a great stock, I got to be able to see that I'm unlikely to lose this much money and I'm very likely to make this much money. And again, then if I'm right 60% of the time about those ratios, I'm going to do incredibly well because we make a lot more when we win than we lose. So as soon as we're winning more than we're losing more often, and we're making more when we win than when we lose, it's inevitable that we're going to do well. But it's not luck, and it's not easy. It's a lot of work to get to this point and to make these selections and to do this stuff. And you've got to make adjustments all the time and stay on top of your portfolio. But, you know, I mean, if you want to make money investing, this is what you should be doing. All right. That's good. I'm done and I'm running out of voice. So we're in good shape. Tom says, Canadian oil trades for $46, but we get paid in US dollars. Wow, sucks for you. Do you know if Russia gets 50 American? I am pretty sure all oil is priced in US dollars, as far as I understand. I don't think it's 50 rubles. So as far as I know, yes, everything is there. All right. So hopefully that was educational, and we will do this all again next week and see what the situation is. But we're coming into Christmas. Everything is bullshit in the holidays. And and the Fed. Oh, we got the Fed next week. That's a biggie. So we'll see what the Fed says. But what are they going to say? They're going to say 50 or they're going to say 75. It's really not going to be anything that's going to change anything. You know, there might be some knee-jerk reaction to it. I think, given what I've seen data-wise, I would almost, if I were them, stick with the 75. But I think Powell, because of what he said in the last time he spoke, was that they may be ready to pull back. I think now the market expects it so much that he's going to feel obligated. So probably pull back to 50 and give strong language that they're ready to go back to 75 if there's any sign of inflation. That's probably what's going to be the move at the next meeting. So we'll find out next week. All right. Thanks everybody for coming, and that'll be that for today. All right. Take care, everybody.